Welcome to CCN Midday News. I am your host, Kevin Christian. Here are some of your top stories for today, July the 2nd. Russia did pay extremists to attack the U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan, according to three separate Taliban sources. The $600 federal unemployment benefit ends this month. GOP senators say enough already. And the Senate also agrees to extend small business rescue in the surprise move. The bill, approved by unanimous consent, would give the Small Business Administration's authority to continue approving Paycheck Protection Program loans. A Kansas City mayor called racist slur after requiring masks. And Florida hospitals are being flooded with partying young people. And Merci Mack is the fourth black transgender woman to be killed during Pride Month of 2020. And still no jail time for the white couple who starved and abused their black adopted children. Let's get to the news. Sources in the Taliban, two current commanders and one informant, have confirmed to insiders that Russia pays extremists in Afghanistan to attack U.S. soldiers. The practice was first reported by the New York Times, which cited U.S. intelligence. President Donald Trump has sought to deny that the practice even exists. The Taliban sources were clear that this took place and that Iran and Pakistan do it as well. They emphasized that only a fringe element of the Taliban takes part and said that they did not support taking money from foreign powers in this way. Taliban commanders have confirmed that Russia has offered financial and material support to its members in exchange for attacking U.S. forces in Afghanistan. The practice was first reported on Friday by the New York Times, which cited U.S. intelligence officials. President Donald Trump has since strongly denied that he was told of his intelligence and attacked its credibility, criticizing the extreme existence of Russian bounty payments as fake. But three separate Taliban sources tell the insider that they were aware of the Russian bounty payments being made. Okay, so here's my thoughts on this article about the Russians paying or putting a bounty on the head of American soldiers. Now, the article does say that the Russians actually did not directly pay any Taliban members to kill American soldiers. However, they did it through a third party to keep their hands sort of clean out the situation. So they would get involved with a third party group of the Taliban that dealt in looking for cash, looking for a quick capital. And how they would get their capital is they would have a third party who would link them up almost like, hey, you want to make some money? And they really wouldn't give them too many details, just basically to do this, or I guess kill these group of officers or what have you. And once it was completed, then they would get paid. They would get paid. Now, all this is coming out because it's been a trail of people involved. Some people in the Pakistani government and some people in the Iranian government as well have been infiltrated in all of this. And my thoughts are that they've just been telling, like, okay, well, no. It wasn't just me. I got told about it through somebody else, and somebody else told, and that whole telephone thing, to the point where the major money that was being funneled into these groups came from Russia. So that's how that came about. So Russia did not directly pay to have American soldiers killed, but they definitely was the mastermind in funding it. It said in the article that it's being done because there are a lot of people in certain parts of Afghanistan and Pakistan as well, many Russian loyalists who want to see Russia back to the Soviet Union as it once was. So there you have it. And so everybody's walking around like Russia is a huge friend of ours. No, Russia is not a friend of ours. Russia is using their power and influence that they have in the White House to take over the Western world. So we'll see how this goes. Federal coronavirus unemployment insurance is scheduled to expire at the end of this month as the coronavirus pandemic makes a resurgence in parts of the U.S. and some 25 million are still out of work and are collecting benefits. The Democratic-led House has passed legislation to extend the $600 per week boost through January, but the Senate Republican majority is vowing not to continue that provision. The top senator Republican said on Tuesday the unemployment benefit passed in the March CARE Act won't be in the next phase of the coronavirus relief, which he expects to pass by the end of July. So here's my quick thoughts on this. People are suffering, around the world, not only in this nation, but just speaking directly about this nation. People are suffering because of not only the pandemic, but the loss of jobs, the loss of money, of course. Housing comes into question, food, all these necessities and things that a lot of people had, whether it was living paycheck to paycheck or something, they still had something. So the pandemic puts a hold or some sort of freeze on a lot of this. And for Mitch McConnell and the rest of the Republicans that follow his mantra to be heartless in the sense to say that they will stop the extra $600 unemployment benefits and that enough is enough is ridiculous. It's almost really funny how you want to stop helping people to give them an extra hand during this time, and yet the coronavirus numbers seem to skyrocket. So which one is it? Do you want people to just go back to work and cause more casualties, or would you rather them stay home and just give an extra stimulus benefit to people to keep people home, let them be able to maintain some sort of dignity as far as their living wage and be safe at the same time, or just rather them work and risk catching the virus? It's just crazy. And excuse me, again, people need to pay attention. These are the people you vote for, or you don't vote for when you don't vote. They have the say so. And this man, sits here with all of the protections he has under the government, which he works for, when he's supposed to be working for the people. And the last thing he is concerned about is helping people. He's more concerned about himself. And that's where the problem lies to begin with. The Senate, in a surprise move on Tuesday evening, passed legislation that would keep the government's massive small business rescue program alive, just as it was set to close within hours with $130 billion left unspent. The bill, approved by unanimous consent, would give the Small Business Administration authority to continue approving Paycheck Protection Program loans, which can be turned into grants until August 8th. To keep the loans afloat, the House would have to pass the legislation and send it to the President, Donald Trump, for signature. Senators reached a consensus after it became clear in recent weeks that struggling employers would need to further federal aid. As of Tuesday evening, the SBA has approved $520 billion via the nearly 4.5 million loans. The unanimous agreement was so unexpected because lawmakers over the last few weeks have clashed over separate legislation dealing with the program. Senators have already deep into separate negotiations about how to restart and restructure the program for a longer period of time that targets aids at the hardest hit businesses. Okay, so let's get into this story a little bit. So the Senate agrees to extend small business rescue in a surprise move. Now, this is the same Senate that we just watched me read this a couple minutes ago. Did not want to give the extra extended unemployment benefits to millions of Americans, right? But you agreed to give extended small business rescue in a surprise move. There's no surprise here. The surprise is that a lot of big businesses have broken their big business down to smaller businesses, so then that they can go and apply for these extended small business loans and get government funds, like the Trump administration, but the company. They have smaller companies within Trump, and they will then apply for these small business loans because they consider themselves to be small business. Many hotel chains will do that, but the big hotel chain will wind up getting the money because it is funneled through like a smaller chain, but it's all connected. So there's no surprise move here. This is, again, what a lot of big businesses are doing to make sure they get the most money from the government. They break their businesses down to smaller businesses, and the smaller businesses then apply for these extended rescue loans. So this Senate knows what they're doing. Again, trying to give money. They won't give it to you, the actual worker who works for their money and is having a hard time dealing with all of this COVID-19. But they will give the money to themselves and take it however which way they choose, which I think is highly disgusting, which is, again, the reason why you need to get out there and vote, because they are taking your money, your tax dollars, and how they get people all worked up is talking about, you have people on public assistance and welfare and all this kind of stuff taking money. That's a small amount to the larger picture of how much money big businesses take by breaking down their businesses and having small little businesses on the side and claiming, by the way, I need help. There's no surprise move in that. Like I said, it's big businesses trying to make sure they get the most from the government. Kansas City black mayor said Monday that he was called a racial slur and told he should swing from a tree after he announced mandatory face masks in Missouri City. The mayor, Quentin Lucas, on Twitter shared a screenshot of the text, which came after he announced Friday that masks will be required in Kansas City when 6 feet, which is 2 meters of separation, isn't feasible. Lucas has joined in Kansas City's protests, sparking the death of George Floyd and other black people at the hands of police. Floyd died on May 25th after a white Minneapolis police officer pressed his knee on Floyd's neck for nearly 8 minutes. As the handcuffed man pleaded for air. Lucas did not share the name or number of the person who allegedly sent the text, which included a racial slur and obscene language, describing the black mayor. In a tweet about the text, Lucas wrote, "Let's do better." Masks as of Monday are required in Kansas City. The mandate will remain in place until July 12th. It's unclear if the police are investigating the text to the mayor as a threat. The Associated Press requested a comment from the Kansas City police spokesperson, wasn't immediately returning the call to respond. So in this in this story, I personally believe that he should have or should be, as the mayor, looking into where the email came from or the text message, whose phone it came from, if you can follow the IP address or something. I believe in cutting the grass to see the snakes. I don't. When you allow people to say things or spew hatred and allow them to still stay covered and hidden under the guise of secrecy, it allows the hate to continue to move and fester. If you expose it and expose everything about it, that's when it stops, because then you get to see who the real person is. And if in fact it is someone who works in that mayor's administration or who works for the city, you get to deal with them accordingly. And it's not to necessarily wipe people's livelihoods away, but if that's the cause of it, because at the end of the day, you represent the company in which you work for. So if you share those particular hate-filled views, and you work for a company that's all inclusive, there's a clash there, and it's not in diversity. There's a clash, and there's no, there's really no excuse for that. So I think, for me personally, I think the mayor should get to the bottom of who or where the text message came from, and if you can identify who the text came from, then you should, and let them be embarrassed just how they tried to embarrass you. As the Sunshine State deals with its surging coronavirus COVID-19 gathering strength like a monstrous hurricane, emergency rooms across the pandemic epicenter of South Florida are expecting more and more patients in their 20s and 30s carrying the coronavirus. Some local hospitals have already reached or are nearing capacity, and these facilities are processing people as part of the reopening of their government-endorsed only to get infected and inhabit mild symptoms. Many patients are often being quickly discharged, posing a very high risk of spreading the deadly respiratory disease to elderly family members, significant others, friends, and strangers. Okay, so I don't know how to feel about this story, simply because a lot of the fault lies with a lot of people. The governor refused to take the COVID-19 spread seriously in the state of Florida. He jokingly, I don't even know if it was a joke, but he basically said that Florida is God's waiting room. Now, what he meant by that, I don't know. I can kind of take a guess that he meant old people go to Florida to live out the rest of their lives until they die. And that's all he was concerned about, that it really didn't matter. Almost as if the people were going to die anyway. So it really didn't matter if they died from COVID or whatever they died from. These old people were going to die anyway. Which, of course, is appalling, because nobody would want to think of their loved one like that. So the fact that he even said that on national TV is egregious. But anyway, so a lot of young people are getting sick from COVID, because when the rest of the United States. Many of the other states was in lockdown. Florida was not, and many young people were still partying in Miami and other places like nothing else was going on in the world. And so then they started to come home and get sick and spread it to the rest of their family. So now Florida has now become the southern epicenter of the COVID-19. I am not surprised, but it's almost like, at this point, what do you want? I believe Florida has been lying about the numbers all along. I've done a story on an article from someone who worked in the health department and was fired because she refused to lie about the numbers. So I think Florida has been covering up the coronavirus numbers for so long, to the point where now they cannot cover it up anymore because it's too much. The hospitals are becoming overrun, and the more hospitals become overrun, soon they will be choosing who they would like to save and who they will let die. And that's just, unfortunately, how it goes. Whoever they can save, they will save, but if they feel like you are too far gone and there's no point in saving you, they will make that call. Now, that becomes a problem. And again, this is how everything plays out, because that becomes a problem when you don't know what side of the fence that doctor may be on. Doctor may be on the side of the fence where they don't really particularly care for a certain kind. So yeah, they may let some people go. And I know that's a little far-fetched, but it's not like it's not possible. Because if you're giving doctors the authority to say who lives and who dies, then we're reaching a whole new level in this pandemic. And people say this is a second wave. I don't even think we've even gotten to a second wave. I think this is still the first one. It's just some states chose not to really take it seriously. The body of a 22-year-old black transgender woman was discovered in a Dallas parking lot yesterday morning. A passerby found Merci Mack unconscious and suffering from an apparent gunshot wound to the head. She is the fourth black transgender woman to be killed during Pride and the 19th trans person violently murdered in 2020. There were no reported eyewitnesses to Mack's murder, and the police are asking for help from the public. Residents in the area reported hearing gunshots around 5 a.m. yesterday morning, but apparently did not call 911 according to phone logs. A passerby did call to report the discovery of an unconscious Mack around 6:15, but the 22-year-old was later pronounced dead at the scene. The murder in Dallas is part of an ongoing epic violence against transgender folk. The body of a 17-year-old Brilla Stone was found in the suburbs of Little Rock, Arkansas last week. A man claiming to be her murderer bragged on social media that he had been paid $5,000 for the hit. And I come before you with another black transgender woman, life taken away during these closing days of Pride Month, which is in June. This was in Dallas. The body was found in a Dallas parking lot. I don't know. It's a lot here. I know some people say, or will say, oh, well, they don't tell the person, and that could be a possibility of why this happens. But let's just be quite clear on a few things. I think a lot of this happens, as I said before, because these men who engage in this and know exactly what it is feel like there's a possibility that they can get exposed. And to instead of getting exposed, the first thing that they do is they reach to extinguish the only person that may be able to expose them. And if they do wind up getting caught, they have this shield that covers them. And the person didn't tell me that they were female. I think it's unfortunate. I think the laws need to change to protect everyone from these kind of heinous crimes. We don't need to keep losing people. And again, this is where, we talk about Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. We should be just as outraged about this because it's still a black life. We may not agree with the way we all live our lives, but we all have the right to be respected and to have rights. So I think that we need to really take a deeper look into what we consider when we take it upon ourselves to consider who life is more valuable, one than the other. We almost play the doctor in the last story, and we get to pick and choose who deserved to die and fight for in the streets and who doesn't. And I don't think we have the right to do that. We should be fighting for everyone. Because again, we can't say Black Lives Matter if they all don't matter. So that's all. The adoptive parents have 5 biological children who were treated abusively, like the 2 adopted black children, whom they said they only punished for their bad behavior. Ken and Kelly were both found guilty of 2 counts of child endangerment, which is considered an aggravated misdemeanor that is punishable for up to 2 years in jail and a fine of anywhere from $625 to $6,250. However, the couple was merely sentenced to probation from the Clark County District Court, who described the crime only as poor parenting skills and ordering them to serve 100 hours of community service and pay $12,500 in fines. Since the sentencing, however, there have been no new developments in the case, no new appeals, and no retrials. Last story is a sad case of how unequal justice really is. And sometimes when the judge looks like you and the judge feels compassion for you and doesn't want you to have a tarnished life legacy. But I think it's all BS. These 2 individuals, not only did they abuse their foster or adopted children, the 2 children, the 2 black children that they had, but they also abused their own children. And I think it said 5 of them were biologically theirs and 2 were adopted. Now, I don't know what system in their right mind, but again, here's where the privilege comes in. Will let you abuse 5 of your own children, then allow you to get 2 more and adopt them to abuse them. It's a huge stain on the social service system, the system of social service as far as looking in on children and foster care and all those things, because some people who are really deserving of the privilege of being a parent have to go through so much red tape to ensure that they are able to bring children into their life to better their lives, that they let many others brutalize the system And I think it's disgusting. And these people should not be slapped on the wrist, but they should have the book thrown at them. Not only for, again, abusing the two children that they adopted, but their own children. And it's pretty sad that you're just giving them community service and paying fines when there have been people who have done right by the children that they adopted and are sitting in jail probably right now for some error in some paperwork or something crazy, that these people get to walk away and there's evidence of abuse, is really ridiculous. And it shows the level of justice that's supposed to be blind, but I believe that chick is peeking through that blindfold and deciding who she wants to tip the scale to in justice. Once again, thank you for watching CCN Midday News. Hope you enjoyed. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also hit that notification button so you will never miss another news update. Have a great day. Peace.